It's finally Friday.
It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
Welcome back to the Friday Show, presented by Woodbine Racetrack. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about the Pegasus World Cup, which is fast approaching. But first, let's talk about the Breeders' Cup, which just ended. It was a thrilling edition of the World Championships when you consider the stars that were there on the racetrack, the California Chromes and Beholders and Songbirds and Lady Eli's, and how a lot of those popular horses got beat, barely, in heartbreaking fashion. So there was a lot of drama, a lot of long shot winners, not many favorites. So from a betting standpoint, it was a pretty appealing product. Ray, what would you say are the hidden takeaways rather, from the Breeders' Cup?
Well, the Breeders' Cup was designed to name or to define the year-end champions, and I think, despite some losses by horses that will be champions, it did determine a lot of the Eclipse Award divisions in the equine side, from Horse of the Year on down to the 2-year-olds. The other takeaway for me is that the Breeders' Cup has kind of stopped growing by one of the most important benchmarks that we have, and that's parimutuel handle. They had a great crowd both days at Santa Anita. It was a record for a 2-day Breeders' Cup. They've now had 10 2-day Breeders' Cups starting in 2007. And handle hasn't really grown. This year's Breeders' Cup handled $160 million. That puts it fourth numerically of the last 10. So, it's not a gradual growth curve, which I think they expected to see when they went to 2 days. TV ratings are down. It's just, there are some issues with the Breeders' Cup getting popularity that I'm concerned with.
Well, I mean, they are, admittedly, by their own admission, trying to promote the celebrity aspect, especially when it's in Southern California, and the lifestyle, the champagne flutes, and the social aspect of the grandstand. And that's all well and good. And actually, for a big event like that, maybe that is the way to go. My concern is there a path, if you do that, to get handle up? And that goes for the entire industry, not just the Breeders' Cup. Mm-hmm. When I was in Australia, the thing that struck me the most was how enjoyable and not intimidating the wagering product is there versus what it is here. And what I mean by that is they have a lot of options. So there's the flexi bet, which is, I've described that when I was there. I want to bet $20 on 4 or 5 horses that I like. Can I do that without having to do all the math and cut? You just walk up to the window or the machine, you put down your $20 and it spits out a ticket and it says your percentage of the pool is going to be this if you win. I love that bet. They had another option. Say you do the pick 4, you're through 3 legs successfully. You can just cash out and not take a chance on the 4th leg. You're not going to have the same payout, but you're going to get money back, and you have the option to do that. You also, with the push of a button, can say, I want fixed odds right now. What are you going to give me right now? And you can choose fixed over the tote. And that's a great a choice to have. And I think for the casual fan, that really is a good connection.
Yeah, unfortunately, we seem to be kind of stuck on traditions. I mean, just for something as basic as what does it say on the tote board? I mean, we put up odds like 3-2 and 9-5, and I think in Australia and a lot of the other parts of the world, they go on a simple decimal point. Instead of 9-5, they put 180. It's easier to do the math that way, and it's not as confusing. There's not the jargon. We do need to make things simpler for people that are standing around at the Breeders' Cup holding, instead of racing forms in their hands, they've got a champagne flute. And, when you see a lot of those at a Breeders' Cup, that means you've got a lot of people who are new and you want to convert them and you want to make it as easy as possible. And that bet, the flexi bet, to me is the most sensible thing. I got $20. I like 3 horses. What can we do here? Instead of, you get thrown out, you'd have the parimutuel clerk snarl at you and say, get in the back of the line until you figure it out.
Well, there's one other thing that I could be missing from that idea of marketing the lifestyle. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think make sure you don't forget about the horse. That is how people relate to the sport. And that is, again, how they relate in terms of betting as well. What better way to enjoy the experience than having a little bit of money on a horse that you have an emotional connection to? California Chrome is the perfect example with the Chromies and the followers. he's a horse that a mainstream public could get behind and understand the appeal of the underdog and his story. So I still think gotta keep the horse in mind when we're doing all this promotion for these big events.
I checked out some numbers and compared Breeders' Cup and Melbourne Cup. In Australia, where there's 23 million people, the population is 23 million, they bet $141 million on the Melbourne Cup card. In the United States, where we have 325 million people, that's 14 times as many people, we bet 160 million on the 2-day Breeders' Cup, 2 days of Breeders' Cup. If Australia was the same size as the United States in population, they would bet $1.9 billion on the Melbourne Cup card. So the glass is half full for me. I think we have a lot of upside potential if we can just get people to, we know people like to bet. I mean, we've never had so many casinos before. And as you said, the connection to a horse and a bet is a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
so
and
we need to
and the promotion should reflect those things. The casinos, you watch the ads, you see money flying around. People are winning money. Not so much with these lifestyle commercials, which are, talking about really spending money because you're going to buy a hat, you're going to get a suit and all that other stuff. Don't forget about the wagering product when you're doing these commercials. It's still really important. All right, let's move on and talk about the Pegasus World Cup, because what happened at the Breeders' Cup could have some ramifications for that event 2 months from now. California Chrome, it looks like that might be his swan song, and he looks like he's going to be there. Who else? We don't know. Maybe Arrowgate. We could use some competition. Maybe Highland Reel, the winner of the turf.
We need some warm bodies. That's
exactly.
When California Chrome and Arrowgate finished 10 lengths ahead of Arrowgate and California Chrome in that order, finished 10 lengths ahead of the field. Boy, if I'm the field, I'm not feeling real confident that I'm going to reverse, like how am I going to make up 10 lengths at equal weights in the World Cup? But, maybe if you start looking at the sprint division, the mile division, the fillies and mares, it's a lot of money. You might as well take a shot.
Yeah, the only thing I'm afraid of, it's supposed to be a 12-horse field. You have 12 owners who've put up $1 million. And if you don't have a dozen horses that can be competitive, are you going to get a run happy? In fact, their owner has a slot. So is Run Happy going to be put in that situation? God, I hope not after what I saw at the Breeders' Cup with him backing up in the dirt mile.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of horses stop after running a half mile, which is exactly what Run Happy did in the mile. He's a sprinter, whether it's genetically or just the way his constitution is. They're trying to make him into something he's not. And to me, that's wrong. He's a sprinter. You should enjoy having a great sprinter. Put him in sprint races. I just don't think that's the right race for him.
And I know they're reaching out to Japan to possibly encourage a runner to come over for the Pegasus World Cup. Is that a realistic possibility?
It's pretty late in the game. Here we are in November, and the race is just over 2.5 months away. So it takes a lot of advanced planning to do an overseas trip from Japan with quarantine and training. If it's not on the radar now, I think it's going to be tough to get one of the top horses from Japan. But I think it would be a great thing because this event is designed not just for the best horse in America, but I think the best horses in the world.
So we have a question for you. If we do have a rematch between California Chrome and Arrowgate, who would win? Take the poll on our website, PaulickReport.com. That's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show presented by Woodbine Racetrack. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.